So, I think people assume when you come from a family of movie stars and there's a perception of money and that life just is just brilliant, and people don't realize how hard it can be to come from a famous parent. So you were messing with drugs by age 13, by age 25 you were injecting cocaine quite often in a day, 3 times an hour, maybe. You got caught up in selling drugs and spent 7 years in prison for drug-related crimes. So why did you decide to write this now, and how did it get so gone so fast?
Well, you know, in all fairness, I mean, there's millions of people all over the world that have been dealt a much more difficult hand than I was. So it's not like, it's just, you know, drug abuse and addiction is one of those issues that doesn't know any boundaries. It doesn't care if you're rich or if you're poor or what race you are or what political, you know, background you have. So, you know, this book to me was an effort to, one, make some sense out of my past and some of the decisions that I made. And you know, I can't go back and change any of that. But what I can do is try to take some of those experiences and make them useful and helpful to people that are struggling and to families that are dealing with loved ones that are struggling with addiction.
Well, I think the book is going to be extremely helpful. It's wonderfully written.
Thank you.
It's brutal in its honesty. One thing that struck me is your dad told you were robbing people even at gunpoint. You were going on these wild police chases. You got into really brutal fights, and your dad said to you, "I think you're going to overdose, or someone's going to kill you, or you're going to kill someone." How hard was that to hear from your own dad? Was that like a reality check?
Well, I was so far outside of reality, but I mean, even so, you know, my father's always someone that I've revered and loved tremendously. So, even in that state of mind, that was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But you know, the reality is at a certain point, no matter how much you love someone, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of have to let nature take its course and just pray that that individual is able to find their way.
Yeah.
Yeah. You talk about when you rob people for adrenaline and for bragging rights, and you write at one point, this hit me, you said, "Now I'm fully committed to my criminal lifestyle. I carry a real gun. I have a purpose and a plan and a willingness probably to fire the gun." Take us back. Help us understand your mindset. How close were you to actually pulling the trigger?
Well, so that wasn't, I don't know if I'd say it was for bragging rights or necessarily adrenaline. What that was is really at the lowest point, and there were a lot of lows. So that was probably at my lowest point, and trying to find some sort of shred of anything that I could, you know, empower myself through, you know, and so that was just really, you know, lost, you know, truly lost, and trying to cling.
You were also selling at that point, right? And you were talking
Not
about...
at that point. That was,
at a certain point you got there, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
At a certain point you got to selling the drugs.
I did.
So how does it go from there to being so desperate in that moment? You needed to sell drugs, you need to get that money.
Well, so that was, I would say, you know, probably about a year or so before I actually started selling drugs. But how that came about was I got hired to do a movie, and it was shooting in Ireland. And about 2 months before I started the movie, this is you know, my luck, par for the course. About two months before I started the movie, I developed a heroin habit, and I got out there to Ireland and ran out of heroin, got extremely sick, ended up getting fired. And then, you know, my family was basically like, listen, you have 2 options. You know, one, you can go check into an inpatient rehab. And I was living with a girlfriend at the time. And they said, you know, you can part ways with her and check into a rehab, or you're on your own. And, you know, I remember that phone call, and I was so ashamed about being fired from the movie, and I was really on the fence. But I think out of loyalty to this girlfriend who really had been sticking by me through a lot of pretty dark times, I chose the latter option, and I was almost living on the street. I was like one little motel payment away from living on the street. And I went to Plan Z, and we all know where that ended up leading.
Yeah.
So.